Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Control C, a gaming podcast. I am, of course, your co-host, Ike Isaacs, and today we are joined by the God Emperor himself, Salsa of the Shark.
I would say God bless, but in this case, salsa bless.
Salsa bless up. And folks, we're coming to you today. We're recording this on November 2nd, but this podcast will be officially out for general consumption on November the 4th. And folks, I gotta say, me and Salsa, we both are mildly political people. We like to talk politics. We have some agreeing opinions and some disagreeing opinions, but something that we both agree on is that everybody needs to go vote. Isn't that right, Salsa?
Well, I mean, by the time this comes out, it won't matter, but yeah, I mean...
Generally speaking, yeah, that's what I was going to say next, is that while it won't matter, I hope everybody voted. I hope everybody was safe.
I do want to say, voting, it's just the thing you do, okay? You just go, you just vote. It's not some heroic gesture. And I'm tired of, it's like, yeah, I voted because I care about the election. I don't need the fucking riot acts every time election season comes around. Oh, it's your patriotic duty. It's like, shut up, man. Come on.
To be fair, though, I mean, last year we had probably one of the lowest voting turnouts in the last, century.
Can you blame them, though? I mean, everyone feels disenfranchised because does your vote even really matter nowadays? A lot of people feel like it doesn't.
And I would tend to agree with that opinion, but I obviously will still vote because what little consideration my vote may make, it will still in some way, shape, or form help. And if more people voted, then more people would be involved in politics, and I would hope that there would be an actual trickle-down effect, unlike Reaganomics.
Yeah, a lot of fucking good that did,
right.
Reagan boy.
Reagan boy. But anyways,
only thing trickling down is the sweat down my nutsack.
Essentially, at this
working
point,
day in day out, trying to catch some of that trickle down.
Right.
Still fucking poor.
Where's my trickle down bullshit at? Actually, real quick, I have a story. I had a guy I worked with, who worked in the movie theater. I don't know if you remember him. For the sake of this conversation, we'll just call him Gabriel. So I worked with this guy named Gabriel, and he was such a firm believer in trickle down economics because we were talking about politics, and he was like, man, he's like, we can't tax the rich more than we already tax them because the rich make so much money and they put most of that money back into creating new jobs. And I'm just like, what? Like, I'm like, where's my, how am I benefiting from like trickle down economics and I just didn't know it? And
like,
I was
call me fucking Ray Charles, but I don't see it.
But seriously though, and I asked him, I'm like, how are you benefiting from that? I said, we work for a multinational movie theater company who pays us $7.25 an hour to literally wipe shit off a bathroom stall, and they couldn't give a fuck less what we do. I mean, if they could pay us less, they would. So I really don't know where that trickle down's kicking in.
You're like, man, I get paid bare minimum fucking wage to mop the floor around a strung out heroin dealer because legally I'm not allowed to wake him.
Seriously though, we actually had some lady who passed out in the bathroom during a night shift, and like we were closed, and like everybody was gone, and well, not everybody. There were a few people left, and this fucking lady went to the bathroom and was like, "Hey, do you know there's somebody passed out in there?" I mean, well, first of all, how I responded was, "Well, clearly I did." So,
like, most other motherfuckers not fucking EMTs here. Yeah, this is news.
And but no, yeah, I was like, yeah, I didn't know that, but yeah, they were either high or drunk off their ass, and we couldn't go in there and wake them up. So my managers, because literally like in our rule book, it's like if we find somebody who's incapacitated, like it is a it's a huge liability to try and wake a motherfucker up, because if you accidentally hurt them, or they could sue you. So basically, we have to stand from afar and try and verbally wake them up, because nothing we do verbally can impact them. And they didn't wake up, so we ended up having to call the police. But I guess that's a a story for a different time. But
gotta love those trickle down economics.
Right, that truth trickle down economics. I also can't get over the fact the lady asked me, "Did you know?" Oh, no, I didn't fucking know. Like, what makes you think I would know? I don't peruse the women's bathroom every hour. Like,
she just looked you in the eye and said, "Yeah, you look like someone who often checks in the women's bathroom.
Either
Not
that,
your
or
job."
either that, or she thought I was omnipotent, which is I guess is flattering, but anyways, back to some games. So, beyond omnipotence and politics, which I guess are supposedly not negligible to each other. So last week we had a Halloween free for all. We talked about some horror related stuff, and we just kind of had some fun. Before that, we did my quick episode where I just kind of covered some brief topics that we had talked about. And then before that, we had a pretty much whole episode where we just shit on Konami. And then last thing, we also have been talking about Resident Evil for a while. I don't think there's any major updates on the Resident Evil front. We're still just kind of waiting for shit to happen, if I remember correctly.
For the games, yeah. I will say there was a slight update on the new Resident Evil movie.
Yeah.
I'll say some photos leaked from the set. Just stuff like street signs, and allegedly, it has yet to be confirmed, but a picture from inside the mansion they're using for filming. Because they couldn't just build one. They had to find one.
Right, of course.
Looks ominous as hell. So
nice.
I have high hopes. If it is true, then this movie's really shaping up to be a pretty accurate recreation of the games.
What, you're telling me they didn't spend $1 trillion to recreate the Spencer Manson 1-to-1 scale with everything actually working?
What fucking nerds couldn't even handle the Neutron style.
But so that's good though. So there's really nothing else to really recap other than Konami is still a bunch of smooth-brained morons.
I will say though, I don't. the whole Konami shit podcast didn't really feel like a podcast. Kind of just sounded like someone recorded our natural conversations.
But I mean, that's kind of the purpose of this podcast, is that our conversations, like in real life, when Salsa and I get together, our conversations are quite literally all over the place. I talk about work. He talks about stuff. He talks about sitting in his room all day since he doesn't work. But
bragging about my high score of how many times I can jack off in a day.
Jesus
15.
Christ.
In case anyone was wondering.
So yeah, when you start reaching the double digits mark, it stops being less of an ejection, more of a puff of air just comes out.
Well, no, let's be realistic. It's pretty much dust by 5. It starts hurting about 7. By the time you hit double digits, it's an effort just to get it back up.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
The best part is no one can tell if I was joking or if I am dead ass.
See, that's the thing, that's the great thing about being a podcast. Nobody can see your face and nobody can tell whether or not what you're saying is true or not.
To be fair, if you saw my face, you'd be like, he does kind of look like the guy who would do that.
Right? You look like a habitual diddler. Of yourself, of course.
That's a tall order nowadays.
It really is. But shit. But I guess some new stuff that we haven't really talked about too much, excuse me, is I mean, we've actually already talked a lot about stupid shit in video games. We talked a lot about bad film adaptations. Although I do want to ask you something I actually recently went back and watched. And I watched them purely from the perspective of, I know that they're bullshit. Like, they're the worst fucking movies I've ever seen in my life, but they're somehow still entertaining. I went back and watched the old House of the Dead movies. And have you ever seen those?
I knew you were going to bring that up. It is. Yeah, I've seen them, to answer your question.
Your opinions on them?
Oh, do we have time? We only have like 50 minutes left.
If you had to say one word, that would provide your initial description of the movies, what would that one word be?
No.
That's
Let me
fair.
just. All I'm going to say is because they didn't have. For one, there is no house in House of the Dead. It's a fucking island.
Yeah, it's an island.
But more so important than that, they literally use footage from the arcade machine spliced in between action scenes. It's like you're just sitting there. You're like, oh, they're being attacked by zombies, standard shitty horror movie, whatever. And then randomly, it's like, well, that scene looks pretty animated. What the fuck was that? Like they'll be gunning down zombie hookers or something, and then randomly it's like, oh, here's footage from the 1998 game House of the Dead.
Jesus
So
Christ.
clearly, not a good movie, is all I'm saying.
No, I would agree. I think that I like watching them just because like it's like so bad that I can actually enjoy them. But like not actually enjoy them. Like I can watch them and I can essentially judge the movie from start to finish, as just a pile of trash, and it's just enjoyable to me. Although I will say, I'm not going to say the actual name of the business because I don't want to like give away where I live personally. But well, I mean, I've said I've lived in Indiana, but not where specifically. I'd rather not have any foolery. But do you remember that arcade that we went to? It was in the middle of the state ish.
Bold of you to assume I know geographical locations. But if you're talking about the place I think you're talking about, wink wink, where
Well,
we
you
would play House of the Dead 2 all the time.
no, not the one where because we would go on vacation somewhere. I'm talking about the other place that we went in the last few years.
Oh, where
Um,
you go and you like pay a one-time fee thing?
exactly. You pay a one-time fee, they give you a wristband, and you can go and play all the games.
Yeah, I know. Kind of know what you're talking about.
So I follow them on Facebook, and they actually recently, as part of like I don't know if it was October or what, but they have the first 3 or 4 House of the Dead games like out on the floor now.
Oh, word?
Yeah, they have all 4 of them out there, and they're all operational.
Shit.
I think they were doing it for Halloween specifically. I think that was what they were doing. But yeah, they put them all out, and so they have a bunch of new machines. I don't know if you remember the old arcade machine Carnival.
Carn Evil. That sounds awfully familiar.
Basically, it's a horror shooter. It's got some it's the gun cons are shotguns, and you have to pump between each shot. It basically gives you essentially instant carpal tunnel. I don't know if you that rings a bell.
Shit, I don't need carpal tunnel nowadays. After I broke my wrist, I mean, it ain't doing that well anyway.
See, that's a funny story. Have you? I don't think we talked about that. So, for people who don't know, Salsa has broken his wrist, and he was working for a factory, an undisclosed factory. And you were a temp, weren't you?
Yeah.
So you were a temp at this undisclosed factory, and I don't remember what you were doing, but you were moving something, and you basically just fucking fell backwards and broke your wrist, right?
Okay, to be fair, I didn't just fall. I was lifting heavy things. I stepped and put all my weight on my left knee, which wasn't having it that day. And literally, I felt like, you know how there's something between the bone in your bottom half of the leg and the top half
You're right.
that keeps them from touching.
Yeah.
For a brief second, I felt them touching. And immediately I was like, oh fuck, and I was on the ground. Apparently, in my manic haze, I went to catch myself, landed right on my wrist, and I was down for the fucking count. Like, literally, I was sitting there, couldn't move my hand at all, and I was like, I'm fired.
But see, they can't fire you for getting injured. That is a issue waiting to happen. So they can't fire you for getting
Well,
injured
hold
on the
on.
job.
Technically, normally, yes. On the other hand,
It was a right to work stay, so they.
well, no, more so than that. I was a temp, and temps don't have human rights. We are allotted the most basic rights, which is the right to work and the right to be paid.
And then the right to get your ass canned whenever they want.
I'm lucky that any other place through that agency would have fired me.
Yeah.
That one place, thankfully, could afford to put me on rudimentary disability.
Because for to not give too much detail, basically the company that he was temping for is like probably one of the biggest companies in our hometown. That being said, they put you like on like an alternate work mode or whatever, and it was like basically you just sitting in their office watching movies every day, wasn't it?
Yeah. Instead of doing what any other company would do, which is send you home and let you get better, they're like, hey, we're going to have you go over to this office with your broken ass wrist and sit there 9 hours a day. We're not going to give you anything to do except for occasionally we're going to have you do some dumb shit like fold t-shirts or something. And so I would literally just sit there and day in, day out, watch movie after movie. Like, I ain't much of an anime guy. But I watched a fuck ton of anime during that time period.
Bruh, I remember that because I remember we didn't live in the same town while this happened. I lived up northern of where you were at, and I remember I would come back like on weekends and shit, and like on Fridays, like well, it depends really, but sometimes like when you were working, like you'd be sitting there and you never had to go in one time because I think I was off like a Monday or some shit, but you were just like, yeah, I'm just gonna go sit there and do nothing all day. Which it seems really weird to me that they would make you come into their office and breathe their air just for no fucking reason. You know what I mean?
And the worst part is they literally said I can either come in and make 77% of my normal wages, or I can go home and make jack shit.
Which doesn't make sense to me because if they're going to pay you to sit in the office, I mean, you're not doing anything.
I think it was more out of spite than anything.
They're like, how fucking dare you have fragile ass bones?
Yeah. How fucking dare you, a human being, suffer from a human being affliction on the job? Fucking broke ass bitch.
Fuck you, man. Fuck you.
Trick ass hoe.
But that's just wild because I mean I work a desk job, but even at my job, they actually have something where if you happen to get hurt on the job, they just send you home and they pay you like, well, they'll pay you 75% of your wages, or there's some bullshit that they do, but then they also have contracted because you can also get like there's like a there's health insurance, and then there's like Aflac. Well, Aflac covers like shit like hospital stays, lost wages, shit like that. So like I have insurance. So like if I get injured, my insurance will pay for my injury. And if I can't go back to work right away, my employer will pay 75% of my wages. And then I have another thing that would pay the missing 25% of my wages that I pay for monthly or weekly. So it's like this really weird, like convoluted system. I mean, this is the American healthcare system, so I mean, I guess it makes sense. But yeah, it's weird how it works. But I also work a desk job, so I don't think I'm gonna be getting dismembered anytime soon.
Yeah, fucking lucky you. Get this. I came into the job, and the position I worked was an experimental new group in the factory setting without giving away too much personal details. And the guy who worked in my position before me was severely injured and almost lost a finger doing the same thing I was doing.
Jesus Christ, they didn't learn?
And I was like, that's unfortunate. And then after I get hurt, come to find out, less than a few months after that, the guy who took over my position also got hurt and was put on disability.
Bro, at this point, they're paying more for fucking people's disability than they are the people who are actually working. Like, what the fuck?
I mean, cows to the slaughter. It is what it is.
But you're not a cow, Salsa. I mean, relatively speaking.
I was like, fuck you. You don't know how much I've gained during the pandemic.
That's fair. I mean, to be fair, I did see you in August for my wedding. So I did see you in August.
God, that feels like ages now.
I mean, to be fair, it was 3 months yesterday that I got married. So it has essentially been ages, especially during a pandemic. 3 months is essentially a year.
I'll say, might as well have been a different decade at this point.
And actually, speaking of which, happy 3-year anniversary or 3-month anniversary.
Is the wifey there?
Yeah, she's in the other room, but my door is open, so she can hear me.
Tell her to go fuck herself.
Hey, wife. I'm not gonna say your real name so people don't know who you are, but wife. Salsa said, "Go fuck yourself," and she said that she is sure that you did. See that's the weird dynamic that my wife and my friend here have is that they like each other, but they also don't like each other. It's kind of a weird process.
It's called keeping balance in the universe.
What is it? Life is like balance. Perfectly balanced.
All right. But, so where the fuck were we?
But we were talking about you getting your fucking arm mangled at a job that sounds like it's been like an ongoing issue. So you're probably a statistic now. But we were talking about you getting mangled at your place of employment. But we were talking previously about arcade machines. Which arcade machines are actually the earliest form of microtransactions, if you think about it, which is something we wanted to talk about today. But arcade machines are the earliest form of microtransactions because, and here's a fun fact. Arcade machines are calibrated and they have difficulties. So the game that you're playing it depends on where you're playing. But most of the time, an arcade machine's like difficulty has been dialed up so that you spend more money on it. So in a way, it's a microtransaction system of you pay an initial fee and then to continue you have to pay that fee again. But it's being rigged against you so that way you have to continue to pay more and more and more and more.
Technically you're right. But to be fair, if we're going to call arcades microtransactions, then by that same logic, having to pay for the electricity that runs your game is also a microtransaction.
I mean, it is really though. But
God, the world is just out to get gamers.
For real, gamers unite.
Gamers rise up.
But that being said, what company? It's EA that was getting really shit on for having microtransactions. Because like Battlefront 1 and 2, I know one of them got banned in a country because they considered it like gambling, right?
Well, for one, yeah, it was EA. It was their, I think FIFA got banned in like New Zealand or some shit.
Yeah, because
literally it was pay to win. Unless you're playing the story mode, which is also pay to win, you have to pay money to get new players for your team. And I think I remember reading one dude unironically spent upwards of $10,000 just to get the perfect team.
Which, that's insane to me, because I remember in the old days, FIFA, you would just fucking throw in the disc and you were good to go. You had all the teams unlocked. I mean, same thing with football. But to be fair, older versions of football games and stuff, they didn't really have a way to adjust the capability of winning because of the technology wasn't there. So like you didn't necessarily have a significant disadvantage with certain teams or players.
Well, I mean, to be fair though, who the fuck still plays sports games?
That is also a fair statement. I don't think that the last time I played a sports game, oh fuck, was probably what the fuck was it? The what's that football game on the Nintendo
Tecmo
64?
Bowl.
Not Tecmo. Well, god damn, that was like that's like NES. Jesus.
Shit, that's the last one I remember.
No, the oh shit, it was the one where it was like all the characters are like overly like they're like buffed up.
Oh yeah,
Blitz
where they like slam
2000.
each other into the ground. Yeah,
Yeah.
Blitz, that's it.
See, that's the last football game that I really played. Actually, I think I still have that in here somewhere. I think I still have that game. But it's literally just a football game, but it's like like the cartooniness is like dialed up like a million because all the characters look like these fucking just monstrous like abominations of God.
I mean,
And
to be fair though, back then all the characters looked like abominations because they couldn't afford to use more than 10 polygons per character.
right. I also have NFL 2003, which is it's a little more to the realistic side from the Nintendo. I don't know why I have so many football games for the Nintendo 64. I hate football, um, but Blitz 2000 was pretty fun because it's more arcadey than anything
Yeah.
else. Um,
That
and then
was
in it,
back when they actually had to do something different though. Nowadays, every football game is the exact fucking same.
it really is, and honestly, EA is making a killing off of it because what they do is they're just like, we're gonna make the same fucking game 100 times over, but we're just going to update it every year for the people who get kicked out of football and everything else.
Yeah, I
Or
say literally, I saw a trailer for their newest one for the new next gen console,
yeah,
and they have this commercial where this athlete is all sweaty and doing some kind of monologue about this is the game. Well, man, we die like men, we fight like men, we shit like men, and literally it cuts to footage of a game that looks at least 5 years old because not a single goddamn thing has changed.
I can't remember who it was. I had a friend years ago. He was I really haven't talked to him in a while, but he was one of those people. He was like, "Oh yeah, man." He's like, "I'm gonna go pick up I don't know, FIFA or Forza or whatever the fuck it was, some sports game esque thing." He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go pick that up after school," and I'm like, "Okay." I said, "What was the last one?" He's like, "Oh, it was FIFA yada yada," and I'm like, "Okay, what's different?" And he's like, "Oh, they have updated rosters." I said they can't just, I don't know, send a
Update the
patch. Yeah,
roster.
they can't just update the rosters. They're gonna make you pay 60 more fucking dollars for 5 people to be added, one person to be removed. Like, what?
I gotta say, looking at the price of an EA sports game, it deteriorates faster than radioactive waste. Literally, let's say it's 2K20 right now. 1 year from now, you'll be able to buy that $60 games for $15 at
Oh
GameStop.
yeah.
Because it doesn't fucking last. It's literally the same shit they're selling now that they were selling 5 years ago. It's just new names. That's it. Maybe.
So let's do a little bit of math here. So
Fuck, I'm bad at math.
so let's 1 second here. How much?
Really punching in those numbers, huh?
Yeah, I'm doing some work here. So obviously the with we're talking about a year. So we're with a car, for instance. So we're gonna do we're gonna do a little math here. So a car that you buy new. So for instance, I recently bought a hey wifey, what was the car that we bought? So we recently bought a 2020 Kia Optima. It was about a $20,000 car. Obviously, I didn't pay $20,000 because I had like trade-ins and bullshit like that. But after a year, that $20,000 car depreciates by 20 to 30%. So next year, that $20,000 car on the high end, it's going to be worth. Sorry, 1 second.
I was assuming you started talking because you had figured out the number already.
Oh no, I was working on that.
Really
So
gotta walk or talk. You can't chew bubblegum and move.
I really can't. So it goes from the 20,000 to 30% less, which is approximately 14,000. So it'll be worth $14,000 in a year. Which
Damn.
I mean, we're relatively considering that, you know, it is a depreciation. So FIFA goes from $60 to being worth $15. $15 is 25% of of its original value. So just keep that in perspective, is that a EA video game depreciates at a marginally similar rate that a car does. And cars depreciate like a motherfucker. Let me tell you what. That's insane to me.
Like, I'll be honest, I could go out to my local used game store right now and I could buy 2K 2010 all the way to 2018, maybe even 2019 for the same cost as 2K20.
Exactly. And that's why I don't understand why people like those games. Like, don't get me wrong, like I'm not much of a sports person, but if the games had any redeeming qualities, like
Yeah.
I wouldn't have any issue with it. But like we've talked about, EA is essentially the biggest fucking scam artist because EA is the only person that really puts out sports games. I mean, the classic EA Sports. It's in the game. You know, like
EA Sports. Fuck my ass.
but seriously though, it's EA is like essentially just like telling all of its fans, like, seriously, just blow me at this point. And the fans are like, all right.
Well, if you insist.
But it's true. Because they're really not doing anything. And this even goes for wrestling fans. I'm sorry, Dave. Dave Dynasty, a friend of the show and a friend of Geek-Stew and a contributor to our channel. He loves the WWE 2K games, and you know, I think that wrestling is great, and wrestling video games have a very long history of being good. But
But
not
that
in
stopped
recent.
being true like 5 years ago.
Exactly. You know, like a few years ago, the wrestling games essentially went down the shitter, and you know, and that's just indicative of the time. Sports games they just kind of die out, you know.
Well, if I want to jump in real quick,
Go for it.
I want to add that the problem with 2K sports games, except for wrestling, let's just focus on FIFA, Madden, and NBA right now. Those three, every year, year after year, it's the same product in the same game engine with updated rosters. So you're paying the same year after year for the same product, but improved by 1% at best.
Right.
The problem with WWE, 2K, whatever the hell, is in the last 7 years, it's no longer a matter of paying the same price for a marginally better product. The quality is actually going down.
Right.
7 years ago, you bought WWE 2K, whatever the fuck 7 years ago was.
13.
You got what?
2013.
Yeah, 2013. That's the shit. But yeah, you would get a decent playable product. But since then, year after year, it's more bugs, lower graphical fidelity, which is fucking wild. Like, literally, they're not even changing the base program except for the fact that it looks worse somehow. And yeah, of course, new characters. But get this, it's no longer, hey, pay us $60, we'll give you the same product, but with more characters. Now you're literally paying $60, and year after year, they are removing characters and then selling them back to you as DLC.
Yep.
If I buy WWE 2K20, you know who the fuck better be in the fucking game? Default?
Who's that?
The Rock, Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, the fucking legends. Why the fuck am I paying you $5 a pop for characters who were in the game 3 years ago?
I mean, that's accurate. I mean,
Like,
that is.
if I'm paying for fucking Mortal Kombat I ain't paying you $5 goddamn for Scorpion. Go fuck yourself. Sorry.
Go fuck yourself. Gersh. I'm kidding.
Yours, Mickey.
Which, and I would definitely agree. I think that sorry, give me a second here. But I would definitely agree. I think that especially with WWE, because like you said, years. I mean, you would have to think. I'm trying to remember one of like the last like good games like on previous consoles. Like for instance, WWE Day of Reckoning. You would unlock some like the legend characters and whatnot, which I mean, marginally speaking, is a perfectly fine mechanism to have in a game. Honestly, I prefer a mechanism that rewards you with new stuff by playing the game longer. I feel like that's
Exactly.
that's an age-old mechanism. I mean, just putting it blatantly, that's literally as old as games are. The process of unlocking new shit by playing the game longer. I mean, and that's probably, and I'm not trying to bring it up again, but that's probably one of the reasons why I love Horizon Zero Dawn so much, is that Horizon Zero Dawn properly rewards the player for continuing to play the game. Like,
hope she hears this, bro.
What'd you say?
Hope she hears this, bro.
For real though.
She ain't gonna fuck you, dude.
Shut up. But seriously though, Horizon Zero Dawn, like I've literally I looked at it the other day. I've put like almost at this point 90 hours into that game.
Jesus.
Yeah, I've played that game a fuck ton. And I'm at like 90% completion for the game. And you know me, like I'm a fairly average, above average player of video games. So relatively speaking, I'm working on a pretty impressive run at this point for 90 hours. So, but I'm still being rewarded, which is part of why I'm enjoying it so much, is that I can continue to be rewarded by the game rather than getting fucked.
And it really is. It's a fine balance between legitimate player progression and incentive and bullshit. Because, yeah, it's great that for every hour I play, I get something new to freshen up the experience. It's another when you do it like EA, like
Right.
Battlefronts, where literally they were like, oh yeah, you're going to have to play roughly 200 hours to unlock the credits to buy Darth Vader.
Right. I saw that because they're like,
fuck you, why would Darth Vader be included by default in a Star Wars game?
Well, you have to think about it too, is that it wasn't even just Darth Vader. There were like, there was another one too that was like, oh fuck, I can't remember who it was. I think it was maybe Luke Skywalker. He was. I mean, I think a lot. I mean, all of the characters ultimately were hidden behind some kind of paywall. But
it's just a matter of balancing out. You can't do it where it's like hundreds of hours of progression just to unlock something that should be included anyway. Especially when these companies are scummy and they're like, oh yeah, you can play 200 hours, or you can give us $10, maybe $5.
A little peepee suck.
Just anyone it's disgusting, man. Especially, I think this would be a good time to segue into one of the worst perpetrators outside of EA. Not Tom Clancy, but Ubisoft. Let's not disgrace the Tom Clancy name. It's just Ubisoft.
Just the Ubisoft. Well, and oh shit, where were we? Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Because like you said, it's not Tom Clancy, it's Ubisoft. The company itself, they're just honestly Rainbow Six. What's the new game called? Rainbow Six. What is it?
Siege.
Yeah, Rainbow Six Siege. That's probably one of the most bullshit examples of pay to win that I've ever seen in my entire life.
And the thing is, it doesn't have to be.
Like, oh no, not at all.
Like when they do an event, and well, for one, already you have to pay money for the new characters. You don't just get to play them.
Right.
which is bullshit because, without a doubt, some are better than others. You cannot deny that there are characters who are literally god tier, and the ones you start with, garbage. Literally outdated, because that's how it works. They forcibly make characters outdated, so you have to buy the new one. But more so than that, the cosmetics. If you do a system where you can unlock booster packs to unlock random cosmetics, and you have hundreds of cosmetics, you can't make it where you can get duplicates. That's unacceptable. Like, if
Right.
I give you $20 for 10 booster packs and I'm getting duplicates, I'm paying to have my asshole reamed.
Well, see, and honestly, that's part of what frustrates me about Overwatch is that you can unlock items and stuff, but you can get duplicates all day. Now, granted, you don't have to pay for them, and you can come across them almost constantly. But also, it's all cosmetic in Overwatch, whereas in Rainbow Six, it's partially cosmetic, but it's also partially to improve your gameplay, improve your character. So, I mean,
Is
I
it
guess
though?
it's. I mean, it's in a way because aren't some of the shit in like the boxes and stuff, like the characters and all the bullshit, like it's actually to improve. Like there, I don't even know how that shit works. I've not played it in so long.
I'll
But
be
like,
honest. I've never actually played Rainbow Six.
okay,
I've just watched people play it, and I don't believe any of it is pay to win per se, because the only thing you can pay to win with is buying new characters. You can't unlock them through loot drops.
we'll
Pretty
see.
much.
Go
What?
ahead. No,
I
go
was
right
gonna
ahead.
say, pretty much the loot drops are just cosmetics. But the thing that annoys me about it is when they do limited time events where it's like, oh yeah, there are 20 cosmetics, so you need 20 alpha packs. You have to buy all 20 because you can't just buy the limited time cosmetic you want. And they fill that shit with bullshit that you don't want. Like the one, I think it was Halloween, where they had a really fucking cool one that was like all bug eyed and shit, and everyone was like, well, shoot, I'd pay you like $5 for that. Instead, it's like, no, no, no. You have to play the lottery and hope you get what you want in the first 10 alpha packs. Otherwise, you're paying more than it's ever going to be worth.
Yeah. Well, see, and
But
that's and like I don't know, like I feel like you said, I feel like you should just be able to buy them outright. But it's obviously it's a money scheme. I mean, they're gonna make more money off of having you basically play the lottery 100 times, rather than basically give you what you want. I mean, which sounds bad, but they're not gonna give us what we want. They're just gonna make us play the fucking lottery. It's more profitable for them in a way.
it makes sense, financially speaking, it is the ideal scenario for them.
Right. Not for us, but
Of course
but
not, no. We are literally getting our asshole reamed, as I said before.
right. It's fucking awful, dude. But I mean, but to be fair though, like with Breakpoint. So like this is something we wanted to touch on. And I think this may have to be our last topic since we're approaching the end of our time here. But Breakpoint was a little broken when it came out, right? And there were some I don't want to say a little broken. It was pretty broken,
Yeah, I was
uh,
going to say, that's an understatement.
But in my opinion, I feel like they've more than made up for the bullshit in the beginning because they put out a lot of really good updates. Like they put out the update where you could choose to make it not DPS based, or right, like
Oh
you
yeah,
could just
where instead of being a looter shooter, it was the tactical shooter it was meant to be.
right. So I feel like they've made good on their original launch. I feel like that game companies have become comfortable with giving us half cooked bullshit and then just fixing it later. and then they don't actually fix it later. They just make half-assed attempts at fixing it, and then somehow, someway, everybody's like, okay, that's fine. Uh, but Breakpoint actually made good on their promise to fix it. But I don't think Breakpoint has any microtransactions, do they?
Yeah,
They
it
do.
does. They have, for one, you can outright buy different weapons that are unavailable in the game.
The fuck?
Yeah, you can literally pay to win not only the campaign, but multiplayer. But worse so than that, most of the stuff you can buy is cosmetics, like weapon paint, gear paint, um, even just like different articles of clothing that should have been included by default. Like a balaclava. You're literally a fucking elite soldier, but a balaclava is something considered too immersion breaking. You have to pay with your own money to get that bullshit.
You gotta pay with your own money, motherfucker.
But yeah, you can literally buy new guns that, for one, break the game, but you can also buy in-game credits so you can speed up, like buying other shit that you can only get in the marketplace. You can even buy boosters that allow you to double the XP gained so you can level up even faster.
Right.
Hell, you can even outright buy skill points if I'm not mistaken. But all that aside,
You're like, all
I
of that aside, but
I can look past all of the bullshit microtransactions, and I can look past the fact that the game launched a horrible buggy mess. Because
right.
yeah, they have improved it over time. My biggest problem is, well, for one, the fact that they cut so much content from Wildlands, the prequel, that should have just been included by default, like the ability to wear a gas mask and a helmet at the same time. Fucking absurd that was removed, but aside from all that, I'm just going to focus on the communication. The fact that in the year it should have taken them to release all of this post launch content, they should have been keeping us up to date.
Right.
Instead, it's just been they'll let us know at their own leisure when they think they're going to release an update. They're not going to tell you what all's in it or if it'll fix anything. And even then, they don't always release it when they say they will release it. Because I can't remember which update it was, but it took them like 4 months to push it out. And then the day before, even though they would have known weeks prior, they announced the day before it came out that things aren't coming along so quickly, so let's push it out another month. And that's just how every update has been. Even right now, we're waiting on the final updates, the final community events, and they've yet to even announce whether or not there's going to be a year or two of content. Even though so far it feels bullshit. Like the story's incomplete, like we're not getting our money's worth. And I'm still waiting. They recently released the Honey Badger assault rifle. Are you familiar with that?
I've heard about it. Yeah.
Basically, it's just an M4, but short. Instead of 5.56, it's 7.62, so it hits like a truck, and it's integrally suppressed. Really cool gun. And they
Right.
released it in the most recent update. But they released it with a bug which makes the stock randomly collapse and extend for no reason.
The fuck.
And the worst part is there's no option in the game to set it as collapsed or extended. That's not even something they've given us yet. And somehow the guns are just fucked and do it by themselves.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
See, and honestly, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, obviously, I think there's a level of communication issue there too. But I feel like that kind of goes back to and then they did this with more than just Breakpoint. They did it with Wildlands, and they did it with Division. Is that they gave us a half-cooked monstrosity that honestly they could have held for a couple more months to get it fully baked before they gave it to us. Because like you said, they just put out an update because they're trying to keep us clear on the times, and they're trying to keep people engaged and keep things interactive, and they give out this really great gun and all this other bullshit, but then they don't even patch a bug. Has it been patched yet, or is it still in there?
To my knowledge, it is yet to be patched.
And when was the initial update sent?
Fuck me. Must have been a month and a half ago?
So you have to think now that they've been sitting on this bug for 45 days, essentially,
Oh, yeah.
without a patch, which is completely unacceptable. Completely unacceptable.
And the thing is, now that all the game is released, except for obviously they still need to release the last community event,
Right.
I want to go back and play the game from the start, now with teammates, because that wasn't in the original game. They had to add that in a patch 7 or 8 months down the fucking line. And I want to go back. I want to play it all from the start. So it's, I have everything. I have it all set up so I can just play. But just the fact that I can't use the honey badger without the stock bugging me is enough to make me not want to play the game. Maybe I'm being hypercritical or autistic, and don't get me wrong, I am autistic, so I can say that. But it's hard not to hyperfixate on it.
No, I mean, I agree. It's especially when the game has a long-standing line of issues with bugs and necessary patches and everything else. It almost just seems like it's insult to injury when you get to the point where this game's been out, God, over a year now, right? Like, how long is the game? I mean, so the game's been out, a year plus, and they issue an update or a patch to give you additional content, and then rather than the patch actually be like, I don't know, semi-workable, it's fucking dog shit, and it doesn't work. So, I don't know. I feel like this is just very much indicative of issues that, Ubisoft has, because they also were responsible for the absolute garbage fire that was Wildlands. Obviously, Wildlands got better, but in the beginning, Wildlands was a fucking hot dumpster fire.
I would say after all the updates, I would say Wildlands was easily one of my most enjoyed games. While not, graphically super pleasing or story-wise super great, it was still an amazingly fun game after they patched it into being a working game.
You're like, it was barely functional. They patched it. It became barely working, and then eventually it was actually playable.
I was gonna say, basically, it went from being borderline spyware to fucking probably top game of whatever fucking year it was.
And honestly, and that was another thing that kind of pissed me off about the game, The Division, is that I really enjoyed The Division. For all intents and purposes, the Division was a lot of fun, but it also fell to the similar demise of it had a lot of bugs and issues that either A, never got fixed because they just kind of abandoned the Division, I feel like. But either they never got fixed, or what I perceived to be a bug or a issue was just a game mechanic. So,
I'll be honest. Had they just made the Division as a tactical shooter instead of a looter shooter,
Yeah,
probably would have been game of the year, no doubt.
I agree. Honestly, I don't understand what anybody sees or what people feel is the appeal to a looter shooter. Um, I just don't understand. I've never understood it.
It's
Um,
games like, Destiny, which make it enjoyable to some degree. But then you try to replicate it, and instead of a clone, you've made an abomination which never should have existed. It's
but
something that should have been aborted before it was ever allowed to come into existence.
But I will say one big difference between games like this and Destiny, and I don't know, maybe this is just because I like Destiny and like I've, it has brought me some joy rather than pain. Um, with Destiny, I felt more of a kinship with the game and its mechanics. It didn't make me want to off myself as soon as I got through a certain point. And I don't know. I feel like Destiny doesn't full-heartedly rely on a DPS system to the extent that a game like The Division does. Because, like you said, Destiny was more. I don't know. It's more of a story-based looter shooter than anything. And I
Yeah,
feel,
not
and I
not a great one, but it tried.
exactly. But it is what it is. But I agree that The Division again kind of fell to the same devices, if you will, that that previous games had fallen to and that subsequent games have also fallen to is that unfortunately DPS very rarely works unless you have a really great concept and you have a lot of great stuff working behind it, which neither of those games did, in my
I'll tell
opinion
you.
at least.
I'll tell you. If right now Ubisoft said we're going to make an update for $10 that turns what the fuck is that game again? The Division
Yeah,
into a tactical shooter like a Tom Clancy game should be,
right.
I would pay them easily $20 for that.
I would agree. I would definitely agree. If they were to tomorrow say, we will create a game that is essentially what we did with Breakpoint. If we're going to do what we did with Breakpoint, and we're going to turn this game into a actual tactical shooter, I would pay them money. I would 100%.
The market needs it. The market calls for it, but they refuse to do it because it's hard to monetize. It's hard to hyper monetize a proper tactical shooter nowadays.
My dog is asleep here. I know this is not related, but he's being really cute. He's like dead asleep. What's up, man? What are you doing?
I got a sleepy boy here too, laying on my bed.
But anyways, um, back to what we're talking about. Like you said, if they were to patch that game, give us what they did with Breakpoint, I would play the Division. I like the story of the Division. It has I don't know, like an apocalyptic feel to it, and it just made sense to me. But
It's not just the story; it's the environment, how it tells a story without saying anything. The beautiful, snowy, cold, isolated New York streets where you're wandering alone. And just the way it tells a story through things like, oh, look, there's a burned out building and a fire truck outside missing its wheels. And you're like, oh, I can see what happened here based on the context clues. That was the
right.
entire game. Everything just felt like a well realized New York City.
This is actually just New York.
It actually is.
Oh man. Well, I think that we have reached the prolific end of our episode of Control Over C today. We've talked a lot about why microtransactions and hyper monetization of games very rarely works out in favor of the user. But
Big
oh
shock
man,
there.
right, exactly. Like I'm actually shocked that that's how that works. But yeah, no, it's been fun talking about that. It's been fun reminiscing on some old games and some old shitty movies. But yeah, so I guess we'll just kind of end it there. But everybody who is out there, of course, you already know what I'm going to say. Follow us on social media, all that bullshit. I'm on Twitter at PintSizeBeast, and Salsa's on there as at red_the_writer. And of course, you can find us at geek_stew, or you can search us on Facebook at Geek-Stew. Any final words for our listeners, Salsa?
Oh, what words of wisdom can I drop on thee today? I don't really have much this time, other than,
Smoke meth and
fuck the,
hail Satan.
well, I mean, yeah, but I was gonna say something more like, fuck the government, man. It's
Yeah.
all just bullshit nowadays. Like, come on. I may be a dipshit, but compared to some of the senators we have in place right now, I'm fucking Einstein.
I mean, you're unfortunately not wrong, which is incredibly frightening. But on that note, I would second his statement to fuck the government and
When I
down
run
with
for government in the future, please vote for me. That's my knowledge.
amen, brother. Hell yeah. All right. Peace out, everybody. Peace out, Salsa. We'll catch you on the next one.
Later.